Resident Evil 4 originally released for the Nintendo GameCube on the 11th of January 2005. 9 months later, it came to the PS2, and with its release came a major addition. A new scenario for Ada written by Haruo Murata, and it was entitled Separate Ways. The point of this mode is to fill in the blanks from the main game, to see what Ada is up to while Leon was on his one-man killing spree. Now in researching, I discovered Separate Ways came into being thanks to the PS2 porting team, who posed the idea to Shinji Mikami, and after getting the green light, got to work creating this brand new experience. Usually waiting for a game to release on other platforms is a painful one, as you watch through the window at everyone else having the time of their lives, while you're sat there ticking down the minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, crying to yourself as you jack it to oblivion, pondering what you did to deserve this living hell. Just me? But on this occasion, patience really is a virtue, as Separate Ways offers an additional 3 or so hours of fun, rounding out the RE4 storyline in a way not seen in the original. Now when it comes to my experience, I've played RE4 across countless systems, from the GameCube, PS2, Wii, and finally the PS4, but for some reason, I've never taken the time to check out Separate Ways. Flash forward to 2023 and the release of RE4 Remake, rumours have been swirling on Separate Ways returning with a future DLC pack, and so I thought it was high time to give it a shot and see what I've been missing. Throughout this review, I'm going to explain what works, what doesn't, and what I hope to see in the future remake, when it comes to pass. Now let's dive in. I mentioned in the intro that Separate Ways' point is showing what Ada is up to during the events of RE4, and that's true, but how it's actually being done is so clever you would have sworn this was planned during the development of the main game. It's not just the explaining how Ada got to the parts you see in the main game, it's all the parts you don't see and never thought to ask for more detail. Like, who rang the bell calling everyone to bingo? Why was there a green cat's eye in the pedestal in the churchyard? Where did Leon's jacket get to after he's been captured? It's the little things like this that upon playing Separate Ways brings a smile to your face. It feels organic. And that's a hard thing to pull off, especially in a mode where it could have easily felt like what Ada gets up to doesn't really impact the main game outside of what we've seen her already do. Now when it comes to adding extra detail, the story told in Separate Ways is chock full of cutscenes and conversations with key characters. Mainly, these are found bookend in the 5 chapters, with the majority of them seeing the return of my favourite villain in the entire Resident Evil franchise. The real big bad. The man who is cool enough to pull off wearing shades in the night time. Albert motherfucking Wesker. No surprise, he's up to his usual tricks, and has sat his ass behind a screen while he gets Ada to do all the dirty work. Wesker's involvement was hinted at during the events of RE4, but here we get full confirmation on his goals, and how recovering the Master Plaga is crucial to his next play. What I adore about these conversations is how after they finish, Ada monologues to show what she intends to do to subvert his orders, ensuring that she comes out on top. It really fleshes out her character as the double agent in a way that we have never seen up to this point. Sure, in RE2 we learn the role she plays as the femme fatale, but we never got to see her decision-making process. How she is acutely aware of the different players and how best to tip the odds in her favour. She's a professional, a character who seems in control no matter how wildly off course the mission goes. She has a plan, a backup plan, and a backup for the backup. She's Batman without prep time.
It's okay.
Let it out.
Now it's not just her and Wesker getting all the screen time. We get a crossover with Krauser, unveiling their strained working relationship to be Wesker's bestie, and even the main lady's man Luis gets a scene which shows where he ran off to after the cabin defense. And that's not all. When you finish a chapter, you get a portion of Ada's report, a monologue of her events, what she intends to do, and backstory on the main players of this story. Capcom had no reason to go this in depth, to give this extra insight into the key characters and events, but they did it anyway. Hell, I'd go so far as to say Separate Ways is essential to understanding RE4. It's executed so masterfully in the plot department that is damn near flawless. Now when it comes to gameplay, there's a few changes you'll notice immediately. First up, Ada moves fast. Somehow, wearing heels doesn't slow her down one bit, and she moves like she's got jet fuel for blood. And the trade-off for this momentum is health. Turns out, a cocktail dress doesn't do much for self-defense, and a couple of hits will inevitably lead to a game over screen. These changes alone don't do an awful lot to make the scenario feel different from the base game. It's still a case of kill enemies, collect loot, find treasures and combine them, selling to the merchant to get new gear. You know, the standard RE4 experience. But there are other changes which altogether stack to make this scenario feel unique. For starters, you can't upgrade your guns. Each one you purchase is already partially upgraded, and that's that. Now this makes sense, as the runtime is so much shorter than the base game. When it comes to weapons, Ada begins with a blacktail pistol and a shotgun, but by spending wisely, she can grab a semi-auto rifle, TMP, and a unique weapon in the bowgun, which fires explosive bolts, and they decimate groups of enemies. Again, there's nothing too revolutionary here, but it's nice to have a new toy to play with. Now I mentioned the character-specific tweaks don't change an awful lot, but when you combine that with the expanded starting arsenal and purchases which are available very early in the scenario, it coalesces to form a bombastic, high-octane experience, where you mow through large groups quickly, with the game throwing more ammo your way than you could ever realistically hope to use. It creates a pace which doesn't falter. It's go, and don't look back. Now, if you were looking for a more methodical, classic-style RE experience, you should know better than look for that in RE4. If anything, this is RE4 on steroids. It's shorter, quicker, and more punishing when you make a mistake.
Oh, beautiful.
Now you're probably thinking, wow, this review is insanely positive. But here's where we take it into some of the negatives. And being the hopeful optimist that I am, I'm going to use this to talk through what the remake can do to improve on Separate Ways' shortcomings. When I think of Ada, I think of a few things. A dress, an alluring sexy tone, and a grapple gun. Now the grapple gun appears here in Separate Ways, but its implementation isn't all that interesting. You'll often be sprinting through an area when a massive prompt appears to use it. Now at this point, you've inevitably run past the prompt, so you turn, shuffle back until you see it, and then shoot up to whatever was above you. Generally, it's a platform containing a treasure or a barrel full of ammo, and that's it. That's its purpose. It's extremely superficial. In Remake, they've got an opportunity to add its use into combat, to whip up to enemies for a long-distance grapple, to create a get-out-of-jail option to whip back from enemy attacks, and they could utilize it to create verticality in combat encounters, where you could ascend to the top of houses to rain fire down on a horde of Ganados. If you're in a boss fight, you could design the area to benefit from increased scale, with multiple levels to evade attacks, flying about between floors and grapple points across an arena to position yourself for effective counterattacks. If it was up to me, I'd limit its use to a meter, like Leon has with his knife in the base game. I'd remove the parry option, and give Ada something truly unique, which makes the DLC feel like its own entity. The second flaw with Separate Ways, and one which I hope is rectified in the remake, is the bosses. Ada gets two. First up, she gets a final confrontation with Krauser, and this is a total retread of Leon's fight, albeit without the same scale and gravitas the base game handled so well. Here, it's small square rooftops you battle on, and when you've dealt enough damage, you move to the next square, which now has an obstacle on it. It's fine, but it's lazy, and to me, actively takes away from how Krauser went out in the base game. Now I get the two have a hatred for each other, but surely this could have been handled differently. And the more I think about it, the more dumb it gets. Why would Krauser employ the same losing strategy against Ada after he just got his ass whipped by Leon? My guy's a goddamn idiot. The second and final boss fight is Lord Sadler. Now, unlike Krauser, this is a unique fight, but again, the way it's handled is lame as fuck. He literally walks forward menacingly along a narrow platform, and you just have to pump enough rounds his way till he exposes his mouth eye and then shoot or stab it a bit. And to top it all off, while this is happening, QTEs are flashing up left, right and center to avoid his attacks, which if you mess up, can leave you dead in one combo.
Oh my god! Wow!
For Remake, the bosses should be completely overhauled. First off, bin off Krauser and bring back U3. This boss fight being cut in Remake was surprising. For many fans, U3 is the best fight in the entire game, utilizing a puzzle as you escape through the maze, culminating in a slugfest which involves dodging, positioning, and heavy-ass firepower. My theory for this creature, and how it can make sense adding it into the remake, is hinted at within the files of RE4 Remake itself. The Black Cloaked Verdugo. In the original, Black Cloak fuses with Salazar to create the boss fight ending the castle section. In Remake, this didn't happen, so Black Cloak is out there somewhere, and as he is named U3 in the files, it makes perfect sense to see the return of this enemy and witness it mutate into the U3 of old. Now I could be way off base here, but to me, it seems a logical step, and offers a unique boss for Ada which didn't get the chance to shine in the base game. For Sadler, this fight needs a complete rework. Now it's safe to say this fight will take place in the altar room, following Ada pumping him full of TMP rounds and sealing herself in with him to let Leon escape. This area already provides opportunity to use verticality to your advantage, and provides a big enough area for an epic fight. This alone should do wonders. Combine this with an expanded suite of moves for Sadler, and you've got yourself a winning formula. Now, it's important to note, I'm no designer, but if the remake focuses on implementing the grapple gun into its combat, and totally reworks its boss fights, they'll fix the only issues I have with Separate Ways. And with how well RE4 Remake improved on the base game experience, I have total faith Capcom will be able to knock it out of the park. If they actually release it, that is. So in summary for this review, Resident Evil 4 Separate Ways goes over and above to deliver an incredible plot, which subtly ties into the base game in more ways than it ever needed to. It provides a breakneck pace with enough changes to the base game to make itself feel unique, and fleshes out the characters of not just Ada, but the wider cast. It's let down due to poor bosses and a skin-deep grapple hook, but that doesn't take away from what was offered here as a separate mode for the PS2 and subsequent ports. I have to tip the hat to Capcom and the PS2 porting team. Separate Ways is essential for any RE4 fan, and even those that have major issues with the base game, like myself, there's more than enough fun to be had to warrant the 3 or so hours of your time. If you were like me and haven't played Separate Ways, do yourself a favour and experience it. You won't regret it. And that's it for this review. If you enjoyed it, put a like on it and consider subscribing for more Resident Evil content. What do you think about my remake ideas? Got any yourself? Let me know in the comments section and we can discuss it. Up next on the channel will be a review of Resident Evil Death Island before I delve into the DLC for Resident Evil 5. I look forward to seeing you back here soon. Thank you for watching. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other. See ya.